Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to Idle Game Chat. On this edition, we are here to talk about Tom Clancy's The Division 2. We have had access to the private beta all weekend and are now ready to share our thoughts. I've got the man who reviewed the original Division here. It's Logan. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Can't remember what I said about the old one. We briefly discussed it earlier, but it's a moment that's always haunted me is losing something in that fucking dark zone, which scarred the whole experience. Is it the first question though? Really, is it Clancy or Clancy?
I always say, what did I just say there? Clancy.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, is it? I mean, it's probably Clancy.
I don't know the answer. I haven't got the
answer. Tom Clancy. Maybe it depends where you're from.
Clancy.
He's not around anymore, so he's not going to worry too much about his name getting it wrong. But maybe we'll look it up for the next episode, or if the review official for the Division 2 drops, or just cull it from when we say it, then we can't bastardise it, and then there's no controversy.
Just the Division 2 then.
Yeah, let's go with that. You did review the game, as you mentioned, and you were scarred by a lost bit of loot in the dark zone. Despite that, and despite that being the time of year, it's 3 years ago almost, 2016, you were at that time, as many of us were kind of hooked on Destiny, and the go-to comparison was, well, what's Division got against Destiny, which was obviously a tough order to follow because that was quite highly thought of in the DIMP community by yourself and Hall and Lapdog and myself and most people that played it. Despite that, the Division still earned itself a silver rating, which nowadays converts into an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. So
you obviously weren't that disgusted by that particularly, damning moment where the loot was lost and it was never to be recovered.
No, I always remember. Not a lot. I think story-wise, it's forgettable, but I always remember just having fun on it. For some reason, it was just a fun, or 90% of the time, it was just a fun game to play. I do remember that of it. So I don't think that's particularly unfair, and I think it kind of does what it says on the tin. I said it was Ron Seal earlier. And I thought it was a good game. I'm disappointed we never went back to it. I think we discussed it a few times doing DLC and stuff, but other things pop up and come out that take priority.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I remember the campaign taking a good while,
it did,
20 hours probably, and because we done a proper clear down jobby on that, got all the little Mobileye fucking conversations, echoes, whatever there was to collect. I think we did our best to try and get it all, essentially, as well as all the side missions and the main missions, obviously. And then post-game, it became more around the gear, didn't it? Like, as much because you basically capped out and then you had a gear score. So it was like another...
Grindfest, wasn't it?
Yeah, essentially. And I think there was these insurgents or incursions, I can't remember what they were called now. Yeah. But you had to have a certain gear level, and that was like proper hard end game. I don't think we ever got to that stage. I think we got close to being at the minimum level, but never quite had the guts to follow through and said, "Oh, we'll come back to it in a month and we'll be refreshed." And then, like you said, other things come along, and it just got left in the pack and then eventually traded in on my behalf. Yeah. But I think it's fair to say we both enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
I must say, when they announced the Division 2. And I saw it, and I kind of just rolled my eyes. I don't know why, because like you, I remember enjoying it. But for some reason, when it came out, or when it was announced that there's going to be a second one, I was like, well, I ain't going to be interested in that whatsoever, because, I don't know, I just had this negative connotation attached to it. When you found out there was a second one lurking, did you have the same response, or did you remember the good times you had and thought, no, actually, it could be a sniffer in 2019?
Kind of a bit of both, really. It's one of those games where it's like, for some reason in my head it goes, well, if there's nothing else really lurking, then I'll play it. And that's kind of how I was going with it. And then out of nowhere cropped up you going beta code if you fancy it, and I just thought, yeah, I do actually. I do quite fancy that. I remember liking the original, so I'd like to see what they've done now on the second one, and we ended up here.
Yeah, yeah. We spent. I think I looked at my log, and I've done at least 7 hours in the weekend.
That's nearly the length of the Order campaign.
Yeah, it probably is longer than that. But there's a lot of downtime as there is in Division in terms of in menus, fucking about with gear and whatnot. So probably at least an hour of that is fucking about in the menus. Before we had Destiny, didn't we? Destiny was the go-to comparison. Like Destiny 2's out. We've just actually bought the Forsaken expansion, me, you, and Paper. So we'll play through that story part. I think we're all resigned to the fact that Dave's abandoned ship on getting the raids done with us, and we're never going to do them. So it's just something we have to take on the chin. It's probably best for the health of everyone. To be fair, there was a lot of problems occurring in those raids with various people falling out. So
friendships were breaking, weren't they?
Yeah, it was all sorts of nasty stuff going on, but that's gone, and we've not really had another game like that up until what was it, 3 weekends ago.
Yeah,
we had a little go at this Anthem, this VIP demo, and the easy comparison is Anthem versus the Division. They're both coming out within a month of each other. They're both trying to offer that games as a service type thing, both third person. Now when it comes to the combat, there's a complete difference in traversal, but it is an easy comparison to make. I think some people will be saying, right, it's either one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've played both, obviously more familiar with the Division's formula, but based on the stuff you've played with Anthem and what you've played with the Division 2, is there an answer to that question for you yet?
It feels really It feels unfair to compare games on the basis of two betas, which is what they basically are. Yeah. You're not really getting the full experience, I don't think. The thing is, they caveat every negative experience with it's only the beta version or whatever. So you never really know what's going to be let out the doors on release and what isn't.
Yeah.
But you have to say that. I mean, the first thing is that I could actually boot up the Division 2 beta and play it without sitting on a loading screen. So it's already in there. But I know you had a few problems with the first mission when you were streaming it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So it's not without comparison there. But the thing is, and the difficult part is I could pick up the Division 2 and basically got that muscle memory almost from what happened before, and I just had to familiarise myself with the buttons and go, right, I know what to expect here. Whereas with Anthem, I was a bit like, I literally have barely seen anything of this game, never played anything of it before, so you're sort of in interrogation mode.
Yeah.
And I think the telling thing is we did one session on that Anthem and just went, I can drop that. And we did, arguably on the Saturday, we did a long old session, I think, during the day for about 3.5 hours, maybe longer than that. And then you text me Saturday night going, we're jumping on. If it weren't for me being a disgrace and going, I'll probably conk out, we probably would have done that then as well. But we found ourselves on it again today once they'd got through the nightmare of 2 hours worth of server maintenance on a beta weekend, which is diabolical. But anyway, and we got on again, and I think both of us, it's fair to say, we both, well, for the large part, really enjoyed it until we got chucked in at the deep end in the post-beta game bit, where it gives you a bit of exposure to the end game of Division 2. So in short, in answering that, I've answered it the long way round, but I think what I've played of both, I prefer, or at the moment I feel like I prefer the Division 2. But that's because it is a fun game to play for its faults. You do have fun, whereas I'm not sure I had the same fun on Anthem.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because the trouble Anthem's got, if you compare those two, and if people are saying, well, it's one or the other, is the Division's got a whole game, a foundation built on it.
Yeah.
So if you've played the first one, like you said, it took a matter of, probably half hour for you to adjust and remember what was going on, and then after that, it's like, right, I know how to play this game. I know the most efficient way to do it, get in cover, hunker down if I need to, rush them. You kind of knew what the strategies are and familiar with how the specials worked. Anthem, we obviously had no idea. We was kind of just fumbling through, and I think that's going to be a tough one for it to overcome, because people like me and you may well have just played this and gone, well, that felt much more familiar and more playable, when in all honesty Anthem's probably got a deep combat system that we haven't explored. I mean, Sir Dave was saying that if you use the detonators and things like that, you can chain together some really good attacks, but it's just not explained very well in there. And you've got the likes of the Division, which is pretty much quite straightforward, isn't it? You know, you point your gun and shoot, you get in cover, use your specials now and again.
But I would also argue that I feel like when you compare the two as beaters, everything that it adds new, if you like, in there, it explains to you. Like, it does a 3-step tutorial.
Yeah,
it does that tutorial piece.
Absolutely.
So it goes, you've unlocked this is what you need to be doing with it, or this is what it does. Yep. Everything is explained in the menus. It tells you what you need to do. I mean, when you compare the two, I mean, Anthem it's not, this is becoming a bit of an Anthem versus Division, and it's almost apples and pears, but the fact of the matter is they're both going to become a grind fest at some point, so really in most people's lives one or the other exists. But when you compare it, you jumped into Anthem and the fucking frame rate is awful, and you're walking around that place with literally no backstory.
No.
The menus aren't loading properly, you can't get into a game, all this sort of stuff's going on. Then you get into Division 2, it chucks you in, it gives you the rich backstory, there's cutscenes, there's a whole lot, and you feel like you're playing a game. Like, I genuinely forgot that I was playing a beta version, other than the few pieces that remind you. But ultimately, I was sitting there going, well, this is almost, I feel like I've started a new game. I haven't just been given a clip of something that I can play. And it just feels so much more polished. That's the way I'd probably word it as a game than what we got given for Anthem.
It's a good point actually that you mentioned that how the tutorials work in the Division 2. They are very, they give you a lot of information and they explain it, like you said, in a 3-step sort of program. You read a bit, you press X, it brings up a new little panel, does all that good stuff. And at times you kind of think, I don't want to read any more to it. But if you take the time to read it, you'll understand how the mechanics work. And I think definitely with the structure for the VIP demo, whatever they call the Anthem piece, is that it sounds like they chucked you in mid-game, so story-wise you're just in the middle of the game, and there wasn't a lot of tutorial help there. And I think you're right, that may have been a mistake in terms of just the beta structure compared to what we got with the Division 2. Like you said, it felt like much more of a cohesive slice of gameplay that we got to experience. And
it's a good way of putting it.
So I think that may well cost Anthem. You know what, I'd really like Anthem to do another beta now, but I don't think we're going to get one before launch, so it's going to be down.
They should do. I mean, what they chucked out was so rough. Like, they just chucked you in it. It was almost like they just went, here's what we've been working on or whatever, have a go. And it's like, well, that's fair enough, but and the difference between the two is that Ubisoft know that with the Division 2, people are likely to have played Division 1 at some points. But even despite that, they go, basically, even if you have played this before, this is how it all works, just for those that don't know. Whereas Anthem, brand new to everyone, gives you fuck all, really. And I just think, help me out here. I don't want to dislike your game or to put others before it. I want you to be telling me why this is the game I should be picking up this year, and to be impressing me, because there's a lot of competition nowadays. And they just didn't really do that.
No. Let's get back onto specifically Division and start with some high-level faults, I guess, of the Division 2 and the beta. We'll drill down into some more of the mission structure and bits like that. But overall, from the time that you spent this past weekend in the Division 2, how did you find it? Was it nice being back in a familiar gameplay style that you'd probably forgotten from nearly 3 years ago, but now rekindled that?
Yeah, it's. I love the setting of the Division. I think it's really good. I find it quite easy to immerse myself in it. And me and you, as I say, we did the Division together, and it felt like you're just back with your mate or whatever, and it's like just crack on what we were doing before. But it's, I like the way that you can have downtime, and then when you're going to get yourself into a bit of trouble, that you got different gameplay styles. It's a really fun game to play, and it's quite a good looking game as well. So I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely glad I picked it up, and I'm really happy with the amount of content they gave us as well for a beta.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. Has the formula changed much, or does it feel very familiar to what we had experienced in the OG version?
Much the same, really, and that's okay. They've done a few slight different bits. There's like where that you have to like capture areas, and it's basically a get it and defend it until you got reinforcements. There's a few different variations on old modes or bits and bobs, which I liked. I enjoyed it. I like the idea of going right. We're going to go here and then getting snarled up in a few bits. So no, I thought that was good. If it's not, I'm very much of the faults. If it's not broke, don't fix it. I think
piling shit on top of it.
Exactly, and they don't appear to have really done that. It seems to be much the same as always. The story becomes a bit arbitrary.
Yeah.
If you said to me what's really happened in that beta, I'd go, well, there's some bad guys I needed to kill. Really, other than that, it's all chuck away. But I'm not too bothered about it. I'm not playing it for a massively immersive story.
No.
And I think the main thing that I noted going back to Anthem was I felt the gunplay was just a bit. The word for it is meh. Like it was just a bit unsatisfying, and it's always difficult, I think, in a third-person shooter to make the shooting satisfying or feel like you're actually doing something with it rather than just holding a button down. But the way that they work the recoil and the aiming and stuff and the variation between the guns was good, and it makes it enjoyable to play.
Yeah, it's the gunplay is decent. You do still have the bullet sponge enemies, which I know when we initially played the first one, you'd called out as something you wasn't sure if you'd be able to tolerate, was the fact that you're pumping 60 bullets into a human being and they're not going down. That still seems to exist here in the Division 2. Is that cause for concern, or are you sort of over that little pet peeve of yours?
I think I'm over it. But okay, if you compare it to like Destiny, then the enemies are different. You think, right, well, how's he taken that one to the bonce? But the prime example is you get to unlock some specialists, and I unlocked a guy with a sniper who had a Barrett 50 cal, and you think that goes through like tank armor or whatever. And you think that's, you shoot some yellow bastard in the head and he just doesn't even barely flinches, and you go with that. But you just have to accept it for what it is. You just sort of accept that certain enemies for some reason are going to take more damage, and you just swallow it. Now I just don't even bat an eyelid. I just go, he's going to take an absolute kick in, and it is what it is. Yeah,
no, it's very much level based and gear based. So, it always seems to level at a certain stage where the enemies don't just go down as you'd expect. The sort of fodder enemies, if you get a good headshot on them with a sniper rifle, they'll go down in one. But any purploids or yellows, which I think are called elites, they'll take a bit more of a pounding to be put down. One of the bigger changes, I guess, and it is a change for the Division 2, is we're no longer in snowy New York City. We're now in Washington, D.C., and there's colour in this game. There's no more snowstorms and grey and whatnot. They completely changed the weather. It looks like it's almost summer, and there's a day-night cycle and whatnot. Is that a positive change for you, or did you quite enjoy the whole... It's horrible winter, shithole apocalypse in New York. It's snowed down. Or does the new fresh colour base and palette give the game a bit more oomph?
Yeah, I liked the additional colour. I think that setting, if I remember rightly from Division, felt like just gets you down after a little while. Like it's so dull all the time that it's sort of, and it's good to see that bit of colour. And I like the environment. It reminds me of. What's that film with Will Smith in it?
He's been in a lot of films.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking.
I Am Legend.
I Am Legend. It reminds me of that sort of setting where it's very green and everything's a bit overgrown and a bit derelict, but it's a nice setting, and I liked that in the Division 2. I think, and obviously you start off in the White House, which is clearly quite iconic. So, I really liked it. I thought it's nice and fresh, and it looks good, and it's nice to be able to explore another city as well. It means they're also not bound by all the other two in the last one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think a change of. I think one of the complaints was kind of universal was, okay, it's a great setting being in New York, but it's like you said, it's a bit dull. It's just snow, and that's it really.
Yeah.
It's not like the most exciting setting in the world. And New York itself, as you swing through it with Spider-Man, it seems really exciting. But when there's just snowstorms constantly, it's not that great to look at. I get there
and high-rise buildings, and that's,
I get there was going for probably like an atmosphere play, i.e., this is, the world is on its knees here, and this is how bad it can get. But I think for a video game, it kind of after a while it outstayed its welcome. You mentioned at the top that this beta came out of quite a bit of content. I think, what do we get? We've got 2 main missions to follow through after like the tutorial bit, several occupied zones, which are essentially areas that there's enemies that occupy it. You go in there, kill them, fend off a horde. Then that's now like an ally that owns that. Base of operations has returned. This time, as you say, it's the White House. So I guess during the game you'll be building that up, recruiting new staff, unlocking crafting tables or whatever. And then I think the newer addition was around the outposts. Now, we only got to experience one of these, but it's essentially where a pocket of allies and survivors have kind of clubbed together to create a community, and then it looks like as you go through the game you can level up the outpost, and maybe they'll give you new items that you can buy or craft, and there's smaller sort of project based tasks that you can do, like hand in 100 bits of steel or something to help them build whatever, and you get like a reward from it. But there was quite a bit in this beta, wasn't there, in terms of content? Was you surprised that there was even this much here?
Yeah, I was definitely surprised at the amount they gave out. It's always easy, I think. I remember when I booted up Red Dead 2, that is, and I was just overwhelmed by the amount of toot that was going on. And it was a bit similar here, really. It does introduce it slowly, but it's not... The one probably complaint I'd have is that I find it hard to find what I'm looking for in the bases. I'd like it a little bit clearer. I could... and figure out a way to find people I need to see. But yeah, they've got more around, or it feels like they've got more around the survival element.
Yeah.
So you're actually building up that base for not just a military piece, but actually for the civilian bit as well. And I quite liked that. I thought that was a nice little touch, to be honest. It'd be interesting to see how much of a pain in the arse that'd become, though, if I felt like I needed to do it, and how much I actually need to go out and collect and all that sort of stuff. Because I think, as I said to you, the one thing that I find a little bit irritating is there's loads of like backpacks and suitcases and stuff all around, and you're just going up to it all the time. You'll get 2 bits of electronics, 2 bits of polycarbonate, a bit of steel, and you're forever doing that. And I just think, it becomes a little bit irritating, but it'll be interesting to see how that fits in with what you need to do back at base.
Well, I suppose now at least those items have got an alternative purpose rather than just crafting. So, like, you can hand it in. Each like an outpost will pop up, and there's like a project stand. So you go to them, and there'll be like 4 things on the list. Hand in, like you said, 4 bits of polycarbonate and 5 bits of steel. You do that, and then you get a reward at the end. It would be a weapon or a bit of gear or something like that. So maybe it's just a ploy to give those items a little bit more meaning. It doesn't look like there's any disadvantage to not doing it, so you could quite happily ignore it, I guess, other than you will potentially miss out on some gear or some rewards or whatnot. But it's not like an ongoing, I've got to look after this outpost, I've got to go back every hour to fucking feed them or whatever. They're pretty self-efficient, which I think is important. You don't want to be babysitting that sort of garbage.
No.
Sort of 20 hours into the game when you're about to hit the final mission, it's like, the theatre's gone down, they haven't got enough food. It's not like the camp in Red Dead 2 where there's people...
Sorry, that was an unfair comparison. I don't want people to think you've got to be feeding people.
No, they will feed themselves. It's just there's optional, I guess, sort of... They're like tick-off tasks, aren't they? They're not story based, but there's like side tasks that you can kind of do and get small rewards for. So again, if you want to do that, you can. It doesn't look like there's any punishment for doing it. To be fair, in Red Dead there was no punishment anyway, other than people just moan, going, we're hungry. It's like, well, you go out
your
there,
arse then.
Yeah, fucking bumbling around, getting pissed up. Let's talk about the Dark Zone, because we spent a little bit of time in there. All we really did actually was do the tutorial mission. I think we have a good idea of how the Dark Zone works. For those that don't know, this is like a PvPvE environment where players go in. There's normally I think it's a cap at like 12 players in these like locked off regions, and you can find some of the best loot in the game in there. But because it's got a PvP element in it, you can shoot other players, or you can kind of ally up to them. But if they start opening fire on you, they'll go rogue and whatnot. And the aim of that game is to get loot that's in there, and loot is typically contaminated. You fire a flare at an extraction point. It kind of alerts everyone who's in that area to that part of the map that there's someone trying to extract stuff. You wait for the helicopter. You hopefully get your gear on the helicopter, and then it goes off, and then you collect it outside once it's been decontaminated. We did the tutorial mission. It didn't seem like there was much difference to the structure than that, but there were a few small tweaks that I read up on afterwards, and that we found out during the game that I wanted to run past you. I think one of the biggest changes was that it mentions that there's going to be stat normalization. So that basically means that if I'm level 30 and you're level 20, it should, and whilst gear's different, it should normalise our stats so we're fairly evenly matched. Old school Division, original Division, it was level 30 v level 20. Level 30 would whoop their ass because all their gear would be better. How does that sound as a bit of a compromise for those that were getting the shit kicked out of them by all the big guns that were spending their lives in there?
I think it's really difficult, this, because it needs to be able to reward those that put the time and effort in.
Yes.
So I think the concern is that I can wander in there as a newbie, come up against someone that spent 100 hours on it, and kill them with my shitty gun, and they're sitting there going, well, what if I spent ages with this gold legendary or whatever it is, elite gun that I've got that's not doing the damage I'd expect it to. So I think that's difficult, but I don't know how they do that unless it's, for example, you could only go into an area, if you're level 10, it'd be between level 10 and 15, and that's all you could see. Or do you know what I mean? Or if there's too much of a difference between levels, like 5 or 10 or whatever, then you can't shoot at one another. But whatever they do, it's going to be really difficult because they don't want to take away that risk-reward element of the Dark Zone.
No. Well, they have come up with a bit of a compromise. I think on the old game, it was kind of tiered, like in either 5 levels or 10 levels, but some people still would be complete sick pups. I remember when we was playing it, you said, do you remember that guy that just kept killing us all? Yeah. And he was an absolute terror. And then even there was other players, like there was us and maybe Adkins, so there's 3 of us. And then even other players who we'd bumped into who were like, this guy keeps killing us as well. And we all sort of tried to team up to get him, but he was just too much.
I think we scared him off after a little while.
Yeah, well, that was only because there was about 15 of us trying to fucking hunt him at the end.
I thought we got bored and went something else in my life.
Yeah, I mean, so there was definitely issues with that. What they've done, what they're going to do, I should say, is now there's 3 dark zones, like 3 sections across the map, and on a rotation, there's going to be a designated occupied dark zone. So this will rotate a number of times during the day, I would imagine, or something like that. And basically, for however long that the occupied zone, that zone is occupied, it conforms to the original Dark Zone rules. So no normalization, friendly fire is always on, and it's effectively like a classic mode for the Dark Zone. So I guess that's their compromise. If you want to, do the risk and reward and be the big dick with all your good gear, when there's a Dark Zone rotation going in, you go in during that time, and you're going to get the classic Division experience there.
That's interesting. It's hard to say, isn't it? I think the key, or one of the most interesting factors of the Division is the Dark Zone, because the concept of it isn't, that I can think of, like anything or any sort of PvP or PvE. There's no like-for-like comparison that I can think of where you go to a zone, that's where the good loot is, and there's the risk that you could get out or that you don't. Most of the time, if you get to a boss, you work to kill a boss, and then everyone gets some loot. But in this format, it's really different, and I think that's one of the key things, is that somehow they keep that attraction there. Yes, I know I definitely, and you probably share it, it's a stressful experience being in that Dark Zone.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it at all. It really is. You're worried about getting shot in the arse all the time. But that's what makes it so good, is that there is that genuine risk that you find something good and someone else comes and nabs it off you. So yeah, I think that I suspect it might take some tweaks, but
Yeah.
It sounds like they're trying to keep best of both worlds and see which one works best and see where people spend their time, and they'll probably evaluate it from there.
Yeah, I think I think definitely there's the hardcore set of players that love the sort of classic Dark Zone, and then they'll be catered for in this new kind of occupied zone whenever that changes or activates. And then there's also, I guess, there's a play here to try and make the Dark Zone itself a little bit more accessible to everyone. Yeah. So for those that were a little bit intimidated or thought, I just can't be dealing with these hounds destroying me as soon as I walk through the door, that'll probably still happen, but at least it sounds like it's going to be a little bit more manageable because people should be on an even sort of kill. Another few bits they've added is that if you go rogue, you'll be able to lockpick supply crates in the Dark Zone, hack those shade terminals for resources, and steal other players' gear before it gets extracted. So there's a couple of other extra options in there. When you extract contaminated gear, it always rolls to your sort of current power level. So no matter, I remember in the last one I've extracted stuff and it's been worse than what I've got, and I was like, right, I've gone through all that stress and it's either the same or a little bit worse than what I've already got, and you'd think that was not worth the hassle. Now if you need to extract something, it will be rolled to your current power level, meaning that you'll always get an upgrade out of it, which is handy because it should be it should be in that stage. But another little change they've done is that not every piece of gear that you find will be contaminated. So that whole process of having to extract and wait for the chopper to come down and attach your loot to the chopper and then get it out of there, some of the gear won't do that, so you'll just pick it up and it'll be yours. I would imagine it sounds like the rarest and most unique gear will still require extraction, but the rest will be automatically added to your inventory, so that should cut down on the stress that you had last time. Yeah.
No, it sounds like it's all good and positive changes, really. I can't really criticise any of that.
No. I mean, that kind of gives... At least, I guess, you'll come out of the zone thinking, well, at least I haven't been completely wasted my time there. Like, there's a chance that you could, but there's you can still pick up stuff just added to your inventory. So I think those changes are good, because the Dark Zone it seemed like it was a place for somewhere to go around and sort of mess around, but really it was for the hardcore players, and I guess they're just trying to make it a little bit more of an accessible experience there. So we'll see how that pans out in the actual full game, but there's some interesting changes there. We have to touch on the end game segment that the beta offers you. So once you finish the two main missions that are there's a number of side quests, probably about 4 or 5 side quests. I think there's 3 or 4 of those occupied zones we cleared down, collectibles, all sorts of other stuff. But there's 2 main missions that are quite meaty that you can do if you don't include the first tutorial one. Once you've done that, you then unlock 3 end game characters. So these are guys that have been leveled up and got specialist items. I think there's a demolitions expert, one with a crossbow, which I can't remember what it was, like a trickster, but sort of used to setting traps and whatnot. And then there's a sniper preset. These are all preset loadouts, and you just choose them, and you can have a go at the end game. And the end game mission basically chucked us into a one-off mission that was fucking hard. We were really struggling, not only because we just inherited a load of weapons and perks and stuff that we weren't familiar with, because we'd spent 5 hours with our characters, but also because the difficulty seemingly was a lot harder. The enemies were stronger. There's a lot more yellow enemies, a lot more of them firing fucking drones at us and blowing up in our faces. But I guess it was to give players a little glimpse into what the end game looked like. How did you find that part of the beta? Because we were both getting a little bit frustrated, and I can't figure out whether I found it a positive experience or a negative one.
Yeah, same. I was glad when it was over, weirdly. Well, the thing is, it's going from... I think the difficulty with that is you go from a relatively casual experience, if you want a better term, to an experience which is the complete opposite of that, which is very challenging. and you're not doing it with guns that you're familiar with and loadouts, and you not only are you trying to figure out what the best combo of guns to have and what damage to do and where to hit you're also dealing with these enemies that are chucking stuff at you haven't seen before, and are very aggressive. Like they're massively aggroed compared to some of the other ones. So we were getting pushed all the way back, weren't we? We were basically in the
fucking doorways where you get in the room was getting pushed back to. They were fucking swamping us.
I think they're good. It reminds me of like a Nightfall strike on Destiny or something, where those enemies are massively leveled up versions of the ones you'd fought in missions before. And again, I think that's okay. You get better loot out of it. It's more challenging. I thought it was all right. It's just a massive shock to go from one setting to another, basically, like a flip of a switch. There's no progression up to that.
No.
But it was good to see what it would be like at the end of the game if you completed it now. I think that's not something that a lot of demos or betas give you now.
No, you don't have a clue what the end game's like, and that certainly gave us a harsh. I mean, we did complete it, but it took a long time and it was frustrating. But that gave us a glimpse into what I guess the structure could be, and it was kind of recycling an environment we'd already been through, and I was a bit like, It does sound like these Nightfalls or these not these raids. What they have strikes, weren't they? Where you're just going through the same bits and pieces, and it was difficult to adjust. If we'd played it, say if this was a live game, it wouldn't be as difficult to adjust because we would have been building our character throughout with the weapons and whatnot. So you'd naturally just have much more familiarity with them. Whereas this was a bit of a shock to the system. But interesting, they gave us that little slice. I mean, it was just one mission, but kind of gives you a glimpse into what we may have missed on the last time round, because like I said, we didn't really do much end game stuff. We'd done the main campaign, then that's the end of that. I mean, the only thing that concerned me was, I think at the start when we activated it said something like, now the fight for DC really begins, and I was like, well, hang on, what's this campaign you just fucking given us? Is that all just bollocks? And now we've got to go through this fucking ultra hard mode. But no, again, like we talk about the content of the beta itself, that's a great addition, really. And we kind of got to experience the three pillars, I guess. One was the meat of the game, the missions, outposts, projects, base of operations, side missions, collecting those shade tech to level up your perks and whatnot. Dark zones there if you want to fiddle around in there and get that up and running, and also a shot at the end game. So the beta is obviously there to stress test the servers and whatnot, but it's also there to sell, potential copies. And I think in giving access to nearly everything, that's as far as betas go, it's a lot of meat there.
Yeah, definitely. As I say, I when I was playing it, because it was so near to that Anthem demo, like genuinely, the comparison between the two are chalk and cheese. Like what they gave you and everything, and the quality of what they gave you in the Division 2 was just at complete odds with what I felt I got from Anthem. And yeah, it was just. I genuinely think it sets a bar for how betas are structured in future.
Yeah,
I genuinely do. I think they've made a concerted. I mean, a couple of bits were closed off, and you couldn't do this, that, and the other. The areas that might have been open before, but might have been higher level, were closed off. So that was all. The amount of content that was there. I mean, I think it was a big old beta, wasn't it? It was nearly 50 gig or something to download.
Oh yeah.
So there was, there was a lot there. They made you download a lot, but I feel like it was a worthwhile experience. So I like the idea that rather than spending an hour on it and just going, like you actually got to spend a weekend kicking the cunt out of it to see what's what. And I'm much more likely. I'm probably about 80% more likely than I was before. It's probably 80-20 to buying the Division just for playing both of the betas. So. Yeah,
they've done a good job there, the Ubisoft. Is there anything you'd like to change other than the awful falling animation that we experienced, like when you jump down they do this really weird, like it's almost like slow motion. Their arms come out and wave, and then it's just seems odd. Like that seems like a really straightforward thing to not get wrong. But other than the weird falling animation, is there anything that you would, like to change from what you'd played?
Obviously, barring the audio glitches, the graphical pop-in. In terms of gameplay, don't make me hold shit down. I said that, didn't I? I was like, don't make me hold buttons, just make me press them. I don't like it. No, not really. I think there's a couple of bits. Like, I don't like the way that you resort to your pistol. I think that's a bit clunky. Like, you sort of double tapping a change weapon.
Yeah.
I don't really like that about it. No, not really. I mean, I can't. There's nothing that sprung to mind when I was playing that where I was like, right, why are you making me do that, or what's going on here? I think I'm okay with all the buttons. The controls are fine. I'm used to the mission structure. As I say, maybe a clearer map in some way. I'm not. I find it, as I say, hard to find people that I'm actually looking for. So I'd like to be able to zoom in a bit more and select what I want, and it actually takes me directly to them. No, not really. Pointless rapples that are there. I don't know what they're doing. Why are they just randomly dotted around the world? We're not using them at the minute, so why have we started? I don't get that. I didn't get it in Division 1. I don't know why it's there, but it's just for quickness.
Yeah.
But no, I like what they've done with it. It feels good. The gunplay's good. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I think the two things I would like changed. One was I seemingly couldn't just join your group. You had to invite me each time.
I don't know if it was a glitch or not, because it was open for joining.
Yeah, exactly. It should be an option. Maybe it just wasn't there as a technical limitation, but small thing. Another thing is when I came into your game and I'd go to the base of operations, it would say Logan's base of operations, and I was like, all right. Brain's not liking this because it means what's happening to his one.
Yeah. Where's that gone?
Well, I know it's shared. Like once you're in there, it's showing. It should be showing my version of the base of operations, but the fact they had your name outside, and then when I was in the outpost, it was like you're in Loading's outpost, and I was like, so what are we doing here? Why are we not helping my ones out? Even though they're the same. Minor things that it can be got over, I imagine. I think one of the problems I had was with some of the specials. Like you can bind them to R1 or L1. There's turrets and other drones and all sorts of different things that you can bind to those to kind of give yourself an edge. But there were a couple that, like, I had a seek in mine, and the only way to use it was that you pressed L1, that's where I binded it, and it would throw it out, and then I had to like manually use the cursor to point where I wanted the seeker to go, and hope that A, the enemies that were there were going to stay there, and B, it was in range. And I'd press L1 and it would go off, and then inevitably the enemies would all move, like, and it wouldn't follow, it would just blow up an empty bit of space. And I was like, in the heat of battle, I would like those to be automated. And what was interesting is when we played the end game character, the Seeker Mine, the option I had for that, there was like 3 versions of it, and I chose one of them. That was all automated. So it appears as though there are these manual skills that are there, but there are also automated versions of them. But the same with the turret. I think there was a sniper one that I don't think either of us could get working properly. It appeared to require some sort of manual, selection on the target, and I understand that, but I don't think I'm ever going to use a perk like that, to be honest, or a skill, because it's just I haven't got time. When you're getting a fucking yellow up your arse on the right hand side, you ain't got time to be selecting where to throw a fucking seeker mine. It should be doing that itself.
Yeah,
that got up my nose a little bit.
No, that's a good point. I'd forgot about that.
Yeah, but I mean, again, there was options around it because we could just select a different version of that skill, I guess. So there was an automated turret, there was an automated seeker mine, but
you just want them upgrades to be automatic still, don't you?
Yeah.
Just go, I want it to be better than the one you've just given me, but I just don't want to have to manually fuck about with it.
No, I guess it's good if you're in stealth mode and you haven't set off. But once the enemies are off and they know where you are, it's a real hassle to try and manually manage those and shoot and heal and do whatever you need to do. But yeah, they're sort of minor things. We did have some sound problems, didn't we, during on Saturday, where I think we eventually just lost all sound on gunfire from either our own guns or even enemy guns, and then there was just this weird like static crackle in our ears going.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we've been playing it long enough where it was like, right, that's a sign to pull out of it. But you would hope stuff like that gets ironed out in the main game. It was a little bit off-putting. There's a few graphical issues I think we both had where things would just suddenly pop in front of us. And again, beta, take it with a grain of salt, but it's there at the moment. Again, hopefully full game that's not there, because that will be a bit of a... That'll be disappointing on it, if I'm honest, if that sort of stuff creeps into the main game, because I feel like that should be ironed out for a release. A company like Ubisoft should be making sure that's not a problem. Connection issues, I had a couple on I think it was the Thursday or the Friday, I'd done a stream, and I had a couple of connection issues, and I'd one today when we played, but we'd just sort of gone back into it. But what we can say, when we played the VIP demo for Anthem, it was a hell of a lot more stable than that, wasn't it?
Oh, massively, yeah, definitely.
So I don't think it's going to be a problem with connection. Touch wood. It's still got that weird queuing mechanic though. Like sometimes when you'd go to load in, it'd say you're in a queue of 149. I just could. I mean, it'd go quickly. Wouldn't take longer than 30 seconds, but I'd still sit there scratching my head at, what that actually meant. But
I'll just if I need to queue for something, then just tell me I'm in a queue in an estimated time.
Yeah,
that's exactly what Overwatch does. I don't need to know what this queue's. It means nothing.
No,
it's just a number. I don't know whether 100's a lot or not. Like,
no.
Evidently it's not. But yeah.
Well, that's it. I don't think I've got much else to cover really for the Division 2. I said I think we were both impressed with the content of the beta, how much it gives you. But it is. I think if you didn't enjoy the first one, I can't sit there hand on heart and say I've noticed that there's stuff there that's going to make you want to play the second one. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, it's it definitely
very
feels much like a continuation from the last one with a few tweaks and it's much of the same, I think, which isn't a bad thing necessarily.
No, and I don't think it's going to be. I think what we get to now is you get games like Red Dead Redemption, you get games like God of War that come out, and they're like some of the best games we've had in years. And if something like an Anthem or if something like the Division 2 doesn't get up to that same level, people just go, shit then, isn't it? Shit, that is that game.
It ain't 10 out of 10.
It ain't 10 out of 10, it's crap, innit? And you go, well, has it got to be? Has every game got to be 10 out of 10? I mean, I'd love it, but that's not a realistic way we live. And it's nice to have these little, games that you don't have ultra high expectations for. You haven't got to worry about being spoiled too much. You can just sort of casually play them. And I think this falls nicely into that bracket from what I've played so far. And it's obviously got an audience on the first one. It's retained the core mechanics and tweaked bits and pieces. It's attempting to make changes to Dark Zone and whatnot. And yeah, for something that had zero interest in when I saw the trailers and zero interest in 2 weeks ago whenever I was doing something else, as soon as I had a chance to play it, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go. On that stream, I think I did about an hour and a half, and then I played it and I thought, actually I remember why I played through the first one now, because I enjoyed the mechanics, the core mechanics of this. So like I said, I don't think either of us are expecting it to change the game completely, but it's shaping up to be a solid release. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it's it feels like they've just gone, well, come and have a look at our game then. We want you to see it, and you've gone, all right then. And yeah, I mean, as you say, it's not. You don't go into it and go, wow, the graphics are amazing or gunplay is amazing, but that's kind of okay. Like having a lot of 6, 7, 8 out of 10 elements to your game doesn't make it bad. So yeah, I'm completely along the lines of you. I don't need or expect another Destiny, for example, that come along and sapped 150 hours of my life. But
no, no one wants that.
Yeah, but if I get a game and I spend 20, 30 hours on it, maybe a bit more, and there's a bit of multiplayer there or something, that's okay. And if I enjoy that and then put it down, then that's not a bad thing. So yeah, I am definitely as you say, it wasn't even really on the sniffometer. But,
No.
now it's definitely there registering. So
Yeah.
kudos to it.
Yeah. March the 15th. Earmark it if you like the first division, because I think you'll probably enjoy this one as well. And I'll see how it goes. I'm not committing yet to definitely getting hold of it, but there's not a lot really that's catching my eye at the moment. So it's got a chance. The only thing that could snuff it is if that Anthem comes in 2 weeks or just under 2 weeks, and they go, yep, 9, 10 out of 10. You think, right?
Yeah. What
have I missed there?
Yeah.
What's not translated to us there when we've played that?
Then we'll have to come back and literally backtrack on everything we've just said for God knows how long.
Well, Sir Dave was, and I can't speak for him because he's frightened to come on these things anymore in case he gets ripped to pieces. But I've assured him he's one of the better talkers that we've got, and he's got some good opinions. But he was suggesting the combat isn't as toot as we may have, said. So
the actual, without this becoming an Anthem piece, I don't disagree with him that there are some combos there which could be more efficient at taking down enemies. I just think the core mechanics aren't that good.
That's an issue.
And that's the issue. It's not that I'm not sitting here going, those enemies took ages and they're bullet sponges. I'm just going, well, these guns just aren't that interesting, or what I'm doing isn't. I'll push a button, a load of rockets come at me back, and I'll sit here and I've got a gun that's got 50 bullets in it that I just fire out. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of like nothing. There's no. It didn't feel like there was that much variety, and it just felt a bit. That's the criticism, which is a bit different in the division.
Yeah, it's tough. We'll see. I mean, it definitely feels like they're close to each other. Like I said, less than a month or so. So they're trying to capture a similar sort of audience where it's an ongoing type jobby and both third person, which we don't see too many of them around. Destiny at the moment has got the first person market on lockdown, but third person's up for grabs.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see as the Division 2 becomes closer. Let's hope it launches in a good state. And I imagine at some point we'll be back later in the year for a full review of either the Anthem or the Division 2, or perhaps both. If people end up going down the route of both, we'll get both done. But I don't think there's anything more for us to say other than thanks for your time and ta-da.